Happy Star Day, and may the 4th be with you, because TRB is back, baby, and we are here to talk all about the latest Star Wars news, and we're going to be getting to your tweets later in the show, because we're speculating on a hypothetical Dave Filoni burner Twitter account, because he seems to have his ear to the ground quite a bit, and a lot of things. We're going to talk Star Wars Visions, Young Jedi Adventures. We're going to talk about what Hasbro threw out there, including another helmet repaint, it looks like. But we're here to have a great time. It's Star Wars Day. I'm John, so thank you so much for joining us here on the Resistance broadcast. We have a wonderful show, and with me, as always, is James and Lacey. May the 4th be with both of you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
How'd you celebrate today?
You're not going to tell me May the 4th be with me? Is that what's happening?
Oh, do we say that back to each other? I don't know. I don't do that.
All right.
May the 4th be with both of you.
Thanks, James.
Thank you. Yeah.
No.
John? How did I celebrate today?
Mm-hmm.
I watched my daughter, and I watched some of Young Jedi Adventures. I watched some of Visions again. I coached t-ball practice and started getting ready for my new job, day job. Until we get 1 million subscribers on this channel, and then I can do this. That's my job.
Good.
But
good.
How about you guys? Do you guys do anything in particular? Lacey, I know you said you were watching Young Jedi Adventures as well a little bit, right?
I did watch Young Jedi Adventures. I also watched a couple episodes. I went back and rewatched a couple of the Visions episodes that I really enjoyed. I've now watched them like 2 or 3 times. And then I did some shopping. I got the Jakku mug, if anybody's wondering. No one is. But I did get it. I have gotten to the point now that I've scaled back. Like last year, I got all 3, and I ended up giving one away to a friend. And now I have 2. But then I have this rack in my kitchen of all these mugs from Disney and Star Wars, and I just can't. I have no more room, so I have to be picky. So I chose Rey. And I got a sweatshirt and a hat for my daughter.
Very nice.
Good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
James, what'd you do?
Lots of the same stuff. I recorded a short too for if anybody hasn't seen it, it's on our YouTube channel for a good tip on watching Visions and how to process that. And the only other thing I think probably I just had something. I can't remember what it was. I mean, I was listening to some Star Wars music today. Oh, it was that at work today they asked me to do Star Wars trivia. So I had to write out the questions early and send them in. And then I wasn't like on campus, so they printed them out and they did the thing. And then somebody else is actually, I sent them over the answers. So I still don't know. They told me that they would grade them and announce today, but I didn't hear anything from them. So I will know probably tomorrow who the actual winner was. But it's always tricky with trivia because I know that people don't know Star Wars like I am. So I'm like,
send us the quiz.
I'm trying to try it. Softballs.
Yeah, we should do it right now.
Like,
I want to try that quiz.
You guys don't want to do this quiz. You'd fly through it. I think. I don't think there's anything on there. It's like finish this quote, do or do not. Do you guys know how old George Lucas was when he directed the first Star Wars film?
Yes. He was
32
years old.
Bingo. John got it. 32. Very nice.
Well, that's why I'm here, folks. But let's speaking of George Lucas, shout out to Josh Robert Thompson, who made part of our show at Anaheim last year so awesome, being the voice of George Lucas. In my opinion, the best George Lucas impersonator on the planet, in the galaxy. He went out to the Writers Guild picket lines dressed as George Lucas to support the Writers Guild, and he's awesome. So shout out to him doing that today. But thanks everybody for joining us. If you're joining us live, thank you so much. I know there's a lot you could be doing on Star Wars Day, so if you're here, very cool. Thank you. Of course, if you got to bounce out or you're just popping in now for a bit, it will hit your audio apps tomorrow, as always. So don't worry about that. And of course, it'll be right here on the channel. But make sure you share this if you're online. Say, come on in, come hang out with TRB. And like the video, all that good stuff. And super chats are available as well, so we appreciate those. But we have a really good show to get into today. And before we do that, speaking of super chats, I know, Lacey, we have one. Is that correct?
We do. The first one of the evening, also the first one from this person. It's NEEL. Our buddy Neil, thank you so
Hey,
much for the
Neil.
super chat. First
Hey, Neil.
super chat he's ever sent. He
Man.
said, "Can't stay, but wanted to wish you and your families in this amazing community an amazing, double amazing Star Wars Day. Happy May the 4th. Love you all." We love you too, Neil.
Thank you,
Neil,
Neil.
thank you.
He's
Appreciate
one of
it,
the
man.
good ones. He's one
Yeah.
of the good ones.
And he rarely has off time, so I hope you're having a good evening. And thank you very much. Enjoy it with your family. So before we get into the Resistance report, just want to acknowledge, Carrie Fisher has the star on the Walk of Fame. Billie Lourd was there to represent her mom. She wore a dress with Leia on it. That was very cool. She gave a nice speech, and Mark Hamill also showed up. So did you guys get to check any of that footage out? And what do you think? Pretty cool, huh?
Oh my God, tearing up immediately. Like, what a long time coming, I would say. Like, I think all of us were kind of just like, why hasn't this happened earlier?
Yeah.
But I'm glad that it did happen now. It was a great day. Mark was there. He gave a great speech, which of course included a little bit of like, she's bratty sometimes, but it's who she is type thing, which made me laugh. And I loved the bit where Billy talked about glitter and like how her mom's glitter and it kind of gets everywhere and
Huh.
that's who her mom is. And then she threw glitter on the star. It was really beautiful because when I worked for Celebration, I remember she would throw glitter on everyone that went to get autographs from her, to the point that like staff were like, now we have to go clean up the area because there's just glitter everywhere. And
That's
it would get
awesome.
all over everything.
And
So it was
I
all,
hate glitter too, but if
So
Carrie Fisher
Carrie-
threw glitter on me, I'd be like, yep.
yeah. So the details I remember I kind of laughed about, where the people were like, all she wants is Diet Cokes and glitter. So I just love that.
Very,
She's
very
missed.
cool. Yeah.
I didn't
James,
get
what do you
a I didn't get
think?
a chance to check anything out. So Lacey's dropping all the spoilers. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Sorry.
but I'm excited because I know that stuff gets filmed, and obviously we watched it online, and so that's probably something I'm going to check out. There was so many things that happened today that we don't just have one day to celebrate. It's going to be like the rest of the weekend as we sort of just casually go through and be like, okay, what sunglasses were announced, from like all these like connections with all these different companies and stuff. Like, what's the cool stuff that people were buying? What's the cool stuff that was released? There was like a Simpsons short. I want to check that out.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch that
I
yet.
forgot
It's
about
like-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's so much stuff. And then just stuff that happens online with other creators too. Like you're flipping through and you're like, here's what we did for Star Wars Day. Like there's so much stuff out there. It's so cool. So this is another thing I'm excited to check out this weekend.
And you bring up The Simpsons, and people are always talking about, Grogu is 50 and he's not talking and stuff. But Maggie Simpson is like 35, and she still has a pacifier. She's still crawling. So she's got to get her act together too, if we're being fair. But yeah, so we're gonna hop into the Resistance report soon. Just so you know, during the Resistance report, we are going to talk about Star Wars Visions. We are going to talk about Young Jedi Adventures, but we're not going to get very spoilery. Truth be told, we didn't get screeners for Young Jedi Adventures, which is cool, whatever. But so we didn't really get to watch all of those. We got to watch as much as we could, with our kids or whatever today. And then if you want if you want spoilers right now for Visions, Lacey has her review on the channel. But don't leave this to go watch that. Just watch that after this show. We're not here to compete with ourselves. But anyway, James, it is time to get into the Resistance report. Let's talk some news.
It's the Resistance.
Really, really, really interesting news about Damon Lindelof's exit from the Star Wars project. And sometimes you hear stories and it's a rumor. Sometimes you hear it's like reported and it's like, well, that's a little more than a rumor, but this was crazy because he was doing a video, just kind of talking about lots of things that are going on in his life. This was for Esquire. And it's a video of him being like, I was involved in Star Wars. It was pretty cool. I was asked to leave. And I'm like, man, that cannot be any crazier. There's literally a video of him being like, I was fired.
Yeah.
It's so nuts. And I mean, that's it, guys. That's really what it was. He talked about, the time that he got to spend on it, and the hopes that he would maybe get to come back one day when the project is right or the situation is right. John, what are your thoughts on him being so open about this process, but then be like, what happened?
Yeah, so I definitely have connected some dots, and I'm going to throw it out there, and we'll see what you guys think about it, and everybody watching and listening. So it may be like, that's crazy. But just first off, he comes across very earnest and humble and real. For someone of his resume, showrunner, co-creator of Lost, one of the most successful TV series of all time, HBO's Watchmen, critically acclaimed. Like, this guy has achieved a lot, and he is very just sort of self-deprecating and human and down to earth, and that makes me want to root for him more. Plus the fact that when you listen to him say this stuff, like, everyone has an ego to a certain extent and pride. If you get let go of something that you've been working on for a year, they liked your initial pitch, like, what went wrong sort of thing, you'd probably, maybe some people, maybe even me, would be like, oh, screw them then. I'm going to go make Rebel Moon like Zack Snyder's doing. But he said, I can't wait to get back in line and give it another shot. And that really made me want to root for this guy, because everyone keeps talking about people don't want to work in Star Wars. Nobody wants to work in Star Wars. This guy is not afraid of the pressure. Clearly, if he gets let go from this project, which is going to be the next Star Wars movie, and he's saying, I want to get back in the mix and give it another shot, I applaud him for that. I want to see what he brings to the table. It's clear he loves Star Wars and wants to do it. So good for him and how he's handled that. And now in terms of, I do like James, how he just kind of put it out there. It's like, yeah, I was asked to leave, and I like that because we didn't know that. So I like that he said that. So my connect the dots thing, his idea was reportedly an older Rey, someone in the vision of a Helen Mirren type who's training 2 other Jedi. So that means no Daisy Ridley. He started working on this last March, as we know by Jeff Snyder, who was the first one to report this and is still reporting about it. Even about this nit piece about his pitch about what this is 50 years after Rise of Skywalker or whatever. Mm-hmm. So my speculation is that was greenlit because there wasn't any indication that Daisy was coming back. Because then you think about those lunches that Daisy was talking about going to Lucasfilm. That happened at the end of 2022, months and months and months after Lindelof had been working on this project. I think those lunches changed something. I think initially Daisy probably didn't have any intentions of coming back this soon. And the conversation was had, whether it's Disney saying, like, you need to bring them back because the kids draw themselves to that character. We built this whole park around the timeline of this character. She's a main hero in our main rides and our attractions, which are our biggest money makers. You got to get her back. Kathleen Kennedy sits down with her, gets her back in the mix, and then Lindelof's idea doesn't work anymore. So I think it was, we like your idea, we're going to go with that. We don't think we have Daisy coming back. We're going to do this character in the future. If she comes back later, cool. But then once they got Daisy to come back, which everyone is saying happened not that long ago, the last thing about that whole Lucasfilm lunch was in December of 2022. That makes sense to me because then you can put your ideas together, get in line with the director, and then 3 months, 4 months later, she walks out on stage at Celebration. So my thing is, I think they liked his pitch. They obviously went and greenlit it. He started working on it. Daisy gets pulled back into the fold, and then obviously his idea doesn't work anymore. So I think that's what happened. That's my speculation. I don't know that for certain, but it makes sense to me. But again, to wrap it back around, everything he said, I want to see this guy back in, because if you are a filmmaker and a storyteller and you're not afraid of the pressure that a lot of people seem to be afraid of, and you get let go and you still want to get back in there, I will root for you to come back and make some Star Wars. So I hope he does.
Yeah, we'll probably talk a little bit here when we kind of finish up the initial ideas of like the whole Lindelof being asked to leave, that whole thing. But then we'll also talk a little bit more about what you were just mentioning, John, about his whole like story pitch and what we think about that. Lacey, getting back to that though, like Damon Lindelof's exit, what are your thoughts there?
I think that Bob Iger was asked to come back in November 2022, and decision with Daisy happened in December of 2022, when he literally was publicly saying that they were going to invest, whether at the beginning of this year actually, but probably in meetings he was saying this, that they're investing in the characters that everybody loves. Toy Story, Frozen, all these things, trying to focus on what they're good at. And to me, he probably heard this pitch, or the higher ups heard this pitch, and at first were like, wow, this is new, this is original. Supposedly from Jeff Schneider, there was going to be a person of color as the lead. Like that was a big thing that was being pushed around for a while, is like that's what Damon Lindelof was pushing for as well, which would have been cool. I think this was an overarching Disney idea, or Disney kind of pressure from Bob Iger and other people to say, you can't turn around after we've built this character up and then just have her end, like in the sense of like have her be older, because you have someone that's in their 30s that has plenty of time to be in movies. So why wouldn't you then use that person? And like John said, like she's in the parks, she's in their marketing still. They're still making toys of her. So it would just be counterproductive to then age her up and then be like, yeah, this is the new Rey, when I'm wearing Rey hair right now. Little girls walk around the parks all day wearing Rey hair. So I think you guys have always said that it's too soon for Daisy to come back. I think it's too soon to age Daisy up and get rid of her, because it's just like, there's so much time there with that actress that why wouldn't you use it? I think there is a piece of this as well, that Daisy has openly said that she needs a job and she needs employment. And if Disney's giving you a big check, why wouldn't you take it? She said she's liked Rey. It is interesting that for the past few years in interviews, she's been like kind of on the side of like, oh, I think the story was told for Rey for now. I think I'm good with Rey for now. And then like in the BAFTAs at the beginning of this year, she was like, I'll always be Rey. And they're like, oh, really? And like, it was a very different turn for her publicly to just be like, oh, I'm Rey. Yes, of course I'm Rey. Whereas previously she was very much like, oh, I'm kind of done with that for now. But yeah, I'm not surprised that they shifted plans. I think as soon as Iger came back in, everything changed. And unfortunately, this was one of those projects that immediately changed. I do agree with John. I liked how kind of candid Damon was in this, because it was kind of like one of those weird Wired interviews where they have the person like reading off of Reddit. That's kind of what it was. It was like random people's questions. So the fact that this came out where he was just answering this person on the internet's question of like, hey, what's the deal with Star Wars? And he blatantly told them, he was like, oh, I wanted to join Star Wars. I did join Star Wars and they asked me to leave. And he kind of laughed about it. Shows me that he left on good terms compared to maybe some other people that we've heard in the past are very much not happy with how things went down. So I do hope he comes back. I think he's super creative. All the projects that he's ever done have been very well received. And in that interview too, he does talk about Lost, specifically about the ending of Lost. And he says, look, I stand by that ending. Like, that's the one I chose. That's the one I wrote. He's like, people have their own theories. And I think Lost is kind of that first thing that fans got really crazy about, like speculation and stuff. So they had all these high expectations like we see in Star Wars. And no, I'm not saying either way because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Lost, but I'm just saying fan criticism is something that has come up with that. And I've read books about the fan criticism of it, that it was one of those things that like, no matter what they would have done, people were going to be unhappy. So it was nice to see someone have that attitude of like, it is what it is. That's what I wrote. I stand by it. So I think we need more people like that in Star Wars with like, yeah, this is the story I told. This is a story I want to tell. And hey, it challenges you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
More Tony Gilroy's really.
Right.
Because he doesn't get involved in like fan stuff online. Tony's more like, this is my story. Leave me alone. Fading out. But long story short, I thought it was a very interesting interview, and I hope people kind of take note and are more honest like this.
Yeah, instead of seeing we're still talking and we're, everyone's busy and
God willing.
He's just like, he's like, here's what happened. They didn't like it. They asked me to leave. All good. Maybe I'll be back. I'm like, yes, refreshing honesty. All right. Sorry, Gene.
Yeah. It was. I think you guys probably are more like. on spot with exactly how it went down, as far as like they probably liked the story, but then real life things happened, you know, with like Daisy coming back or wanting to come back, Bob Iger making decisions about that whole aspect of, and I honestly, like, again, we'll talk about that here in a second, his idea of an older Rey. I think that's cool and that's a good idea. But then again, it seems really strange because right now that's a good idea. But when we got to that point where Daisy Ridley was older, it would be like, now this doesn't line up and this is weird. We're looking at the wrong character and it doesn't, you know what I mean? If you're trying to set up a legacy, like that's like one thing that Star Wars has done well so far, pretty successfully, other than maybe like Obi-Wan Kenobi or something, where we're playing in that world now. But no, my initial thoughts on this is just that Lindelof plays ball, and again, I think you guys are right. My first thoughts were that I just felt like there was this impression that he couldn't crack it. Like they were like, do you want Star Wars? And he's like, that's a big task, but say yes to the job. He comes in and he's like, what do you want me to do? And they tell him this story. And he's like, man, so many stories that I could tell, but you're giving me this one. Okay, I'll do it. And he's writing the story, but you know, he does that interview where he says, I just feel like you're in the kitchen and maybe you shouldn't be one of the chefs. Maybe you should just be enjoying it. And
he said that,
if
right?
it can't, yeah, he said that. And if it can't be great, you shouldn't do it. So it almost makes me feel like he was like humbly like, I can't figure out this story perfectly. I don't know exactly how to handle it. And I don't think whatever I do is going to be great. And they were like, well, then, and he's like, okay, I'll leave. But that was my initial thought. I think you guys are probably more right considering like the Daisy stuff. But I don't know. I just kind of had this impression that he was like a very humble person. And he was like, I'm just being honest. I can't crack this one. So if you guys want to let me go, that's fine. Just, I would like to try Star Wars again, maybe in a different situation. I just couldn't, this story wasn't working for me, you know?
That's where I had disconnect, because I don't think it went that way where they're like, hey, successful creator of TV's series, this is the story we want you to write, go write it. I think this was, he pitched an idea and they liked it and they went with it until Iger comes back, Ridley comes back, and then he's just handcuffed because then it's gone. Now, let's not forget, like, they could do an older Rey, just devil's advocate. They could do an older Rey thing and still go back and do Daisy Ridley stuff. Star Wars has bopped around a lot. So it's not like, oh my God, they did older Rey, it's over. Daisy's finished. And so no, they could still do that. But when you think about, and we say this a lot in this podcast, you know, the kids who were 5 and 6 and 7 when TFA came out are going to be in high school when this movie comes out. They're going to be the ones, like I was as a high schooler, going to see the prequels, and like you're the one driving the conversation. That's really, really important. And on top of that, there are still little kids now who like probably were born at the end of the sequel trilogy who are going to be 5 and 6 when that trilogy comes out. It's just a character that it's the right time, like Lacey said, to proceed with it, because of those kids are now having a voice. Their first Star Wars experience was this person, this orphan in Jakku with BB-8, and they're like, oh my God, I want to be Rey. And now they're going to be in high school, and they're going to be the ones with opinions, starting podcasts and stuff. It's so important to stick with that and channel your direction toward that as opposed to away from it. So it's a bummer for him, because it probably was a good idea. I mean, Snyder said that he heard the script wasn't very good. Who knows? But
that also kind of lends to what I was saying too. That I think all of this building up was kind of like, I'm getting the impression that he just wasn't. He's a good writer, but he couldn't like quite put this one together.
And it wasn't.
I'm also
Helen Mirren.
It was like kind of think they sometimes they tell him this is the story we want you to tell. I feel like that has been the case for a while.
I think for some stuff, like sequel trilogy, like we know what we're doing here, but when it comes to like a new movies and stuff, I think Mangold pitched the Ancient Jedi stuff. He wanted to make a biblical epic, and they like that idea.
But I still think they already had that in mind, because that was the whole Benioff and Weiss thing. So it's like, Lucasfilm knows where they want to go. They're just trying to find the right people to fill in the stories.
It's probably a very loose, hey, we want to do something that happened 20,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Lacey, what are your thoughts on the older Rey and Helen Mirren potentially being the person he either had in mind? I don't think she was ever like locked in
It was
or
a
anything
type,
like that.
a Helen Mirren type.
Yeah, I think that was the idea. It's just like someone like that. What are your thoughts there?
I stand by what I said earlier. Just like you guys have been saying, too early for Rey. I think it's too early for old Rey. Like, I need some time with the character. I don't think the sequel trilogy told her story. I think she was intertwined with the Skywalker saga and the story of Luke, Han, and Leia and
Right.
Han and Leia's son and Palpatine and all that stuff. I think they were tying up things that were kind of open ended. I don't think it was necessarily her story and like her journey, whereas now this new series could be. So that's why I think that I need to see that before I see older Rey. I need her to have her adventure.
Yeah.
And I guess either of you thoughts on training 2 Jedi?
I mean,
Depends. Is it a romance, Damon Lindelof?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, they always seem to keep things in their pocket, maybe like resurface them later. So there's the possibility that this story gets told in 15 years or something like that.
Or
yeah,
way later,
I don't know.
when Daisy Ridley is Helen Mirren's age.
Yeah, and we're not going to reveal.
She's
too
younger
much,
than me, so.
What's that?
I said she's younger than me, so when Daisy Ridley's Helen Mirren age, what does that make me?
The oldest Star Wars fan.
Monday, we're going to talk about an interesting possibility about that new Rey movie. So we're going to have some fun speculating on that.
All right. Well, let's move on, I guess, to some of the stuff that came out on today.
Can we go through some of these super chats first?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Cool. So first we have Miles. Thank you so much for the super chat, Miles. He said, last month was Autistic Awareness Month. With myself being autistic, will Star Wars make a series where the lead character is autistic, unexplored right now? I honestly couldn't tell you, Miles. I think it would be cool to see that. I'm always for diverse storytelling with characters with all different backgrounds and viewpoints and experiences. I don't know if they're going to touch that right now, only because they kind of have a very straightforward plan with what they're doing based on what they said at Celebration. But based on what we've heard from Dave Filoni, I think that they have stuff that's in development, like a whole bunch of stuff. So I think we could.
Yeah. My thoughts, I don't know that they would ever put an autistic character straight up in the lead, as you're saying there, but I know that they're getting ready to release Skeleton Crew, which has 4 kids, and I could see a character in that, you know, having those tendencies, which obviously I don't think Star Wars would be like, they would just say like, he's different or something. I don't know what they would do, but like they wouldn't use that word. But it would be there to represent a group of people that, you know, have that
want to be seen on screen. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I think like when you have this show that's coming up where anytime they ever put like 4 people together, they're obviously supposed to like inhibit different traits and personalities, and they have an opportunity to represent a bunch of different people. So that is one opportunity. We could see one of those kids like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because Star Wars, they try to like keep it separated from our earthy terms in some regards.
Right.
And in terms of lead character, I'm not sure, Miles. It's a great question. And thank you for the super chat. I know there's been speculation or belief from people that Tech from Bad Batch is representative of autism in terms of him opening up about how he conveys his emotions and how he internalizes things and stuff. And I think a lot of people were very moved by that. So I think that it is there. I don't know, like that'd be a great question for the people who make it though, about a lead character. So
I didn't think about that. It's very true.
It's a great thing to bring up though, Miles. Appreciate it.
Next is Mickey Bell. Hey, Mickey, how's it going? Thanks for the super chat. He said, happy Star Wars Day. Got to interview some Star Wars cosplayers today. A very cool part of my job as a journalist. Talking to cosplayers is like the best. We had Jedi Manda on for Mando Fan Show, and it's just super fun. They have just a skill that I could never have, like sewing, creative, like design, all that stuff. He says, so glad I got to meet you all at Star Wars Celebration London. You made my weekend. May the 4th be with you. Oh, thanks. You made
man.
ours.
Thank you.
Yeah, there were a lot of pictures that Mickey took with people either who were in Star Wars and stuff, and he had our vinyl sticker on his jacket. It was really cool.
Love it.
But yeah, really nice to meet you. You're very, very kind and very nice. Appreciate it, buddy.
You have a great photo, by the way. Kyle Beckworth. What up, Kyle? Thanks for the super chat. He said, "Happy May the 4th. Thanks for all that you do, TRB. I've only watched a couple of Visions episodes, but man, the spy dancer was fantastic." Yes, it was, and we're gonna get into that in just a little bit. So excited to talk about it. Like I said in my review, we've been sitting on these episodes for like weeks, and I've been sitting here being like, "Guys, it is so good." So I can't wait to talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
And go back to James.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, that's it. That's probably the cue. Let's open it up. Probably to Visions first, since we're so excited about it. I don't know exactly. I think this is sort of a little bit of an open discussion, but we can maybe, I don't know if we want to do this chronologically, kind of walk through them each, talk about the season maybe as a whole. Lacey, you want to kick us off there?
Sure. So do we want to go one by one, or do we want to more just talk about what our favorites are?
I would say,
Fair.
well, you did the review where you pretty much did that, so I think people should go watch that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, James, like, don't talk about anything you don't want to talk about, of course, but I think if we went through all of them now, might be a little monotonous. But yeah, maybe favorites, favorite moments, things that stood out, that type of thing. So
yeah, I would say my favorites are probably 1, 4, and 9. Or not 9. Is it 9?
Yep,
8.
9.
No, 9. Yes, 9.
Right. Yeah.
9.
Song?
Yeah, Awu song. Yep. So I loved Sith, I'm Your Mother from Aardman, and then Awu song. So I was very fortunate to interview Rodrigo Blas, from the writer director of Sith, which is the first episode. Yesterday. It just happened very early in the morning. So that will be coming out on the stream or on YouTube channel and on social media soon. It's just unfortunate that I got like right before May the 4th. So that will be coming soon, but it was really great to talk to him because this was one of my favorite episodes, between the character Lola and her droid E2 and the Sith Master. It was just super interesting. And I remember when I watched it, I immediately texted these guys in all caps being like, episode 1 is amazing. Because it was just that good. I loved all the colors and the idea that it goes back to that theme with Star Wars of not letting your past define you, and letting your past decisions determine who you are in the future. Like, you always have the choice to do the right thing, which is what Lola decides, is like, I'm not a bad guy. I'm going to be good. So yeah, it was just very cool. I liked kind of just the overall aesthetic of it. The music was great. It was just, it just kicked it off like really well. Like, it hits you kind of in the face with color and action and all these cool things. And you're like, oh my gosh, what am I getting into? And you guys have to go watch James's short about how to watch these, because it's so true. You go back and watch them multiple times, because the first time you're just trying to get through them and you're like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And then you go back and you're like, wow, this is just amazing. My other favorite was 4. Like I said, Aardman, the people that do Wallace and Gromit. I loved this episode so much. It is basically my Star Wars in an episode. Like, very fun, kind of campy a little bit, like a family friendly one that you just have a really good time, but has a really good story behind it of, you know, mother-daughter relationships. And I could see myself eventually having that with my daughter, where I'm sure I already embarrass her. She's not that old, but I'm sure I do. So it was just really fun to watch. And it was, for me, one of the ones that felt most Star Wars to me, just because there were so many like Wookiees and aliens that you recognize, and wedges in it, and like all this stuff. Oh, by the way, spoilers if anybody's watching this. And then
he's a cameo. He shows up. He's not
and then my other favorite was episode 9, which is from Triggerfish, which is Au's song. This episode was another very kind of like childlike wonder, child finding their way through the galaxy and universe and where they belong, leaving home for the first time, mother-daughter relationship, which is really important to me. I'm really close to my dad. And I really loved the aesthetic of it. Like I said this in my review, it looked like you could reach out and hug it. Like, it looked like they were playing with like kind of like stuffed animals, which I thought was really unique, because a lot of these episodes, especially in volume 1, were very like 2D. They were very like hand-drawn looking anime type style animations. Whereas this season we had very much several that looked like claymation. Then we had this one that had more of like a touch to it. But yeah, it was just really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest difference between season 1 and season 2 is season 1 being almost exclusively Japanese and anime 2D, all of it stylized like that. And this one opening it up to the world and then in turn changing how they've done the animation as well. So we had some 3D animation, we had some 2D animation, we had claymation as well. And I think how they've broadened that to not only be like representative of other cultures and not just this one vision of what Star Wars could be, but multiple visions, and then expressing that through the animation and extending it beyond just the one style. Although I will say, I like the I'm most excited about the anime style. So I think
could see that. I could totally see that.
So I think like when I'm watching them, the one that excites me the most.
By the
is
way,
the Dark Head.
Yeah, I'm very excited to hear what you guys think, because what I also said in my review is the coolest thing about Visions is you kind of learn something about people when they tell you which ones are their favorites.
Right.
Like
right.
the ones I chose, I'm sure these guys would have been like, "Oh, you like this one and this one," because that's just kind of the things that I like. You know what I mean?
Only the I Am Your Mother. I saw that one. The other two I'm like, interesting. Like I don't know that I would have picked them, but yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. I like the Journey to Darkhead just because of the animation style. I thought the story was good but not great. On my second watch, I was more pulled towards the Screecher's Reach.
That's the one I didn't like. It really
I know.
haunted me, and I think it's because it's so good that it left me feeling very uncomfortable.
I watched that one and I started and I was like, I'm not into this animation. And I watched the whole thing and I was like, or not the whole thing. I got to part of it and I was like, wow, there's a really emotional ending. I think the music is really good in this one. Anyway, moving on. And that's why I thought it was so important. When I went back and rewatched them, I was like, oh, I know what this one is. This one has that big emotional ending. And then like knowing that, whew, different video, you know, different concept, different piece of art. It was that one is crazy because I feel like it's so I don't want to say anything that is going to spoil it. But it's so heavy the way that it ends. It's like watching a horror movie and being like, I feel terrible. That movie was awesome. You know?
Yes.
Like
yes,
I feel great. It was so scary and I was having panic attacks in the movie. That's a good horror movie. You know, it's like it kind of feels like that. Like
it was very
you're
dark.
watching it. Yeah, and you're like this seems very simple, but at the same time, like when you get to it, you're like, this is a wild story. I almost can't believe they told it. There's other ones that like the Pit obviously has a lot of like real. I felt like that was the most real world story.
Yes, I felt the same way. It reflected a lot of how people are feeling currently in the world. Yeah, I felt that.
And then I also really liked the Into the Stars or In the Stars. That one.
Oh yeah, that one was beautiful.
Because that one reminded me a little bit of Lilo and Stitch. And then the one that I was talking about, Screecher's Reach, that one reminded me a lot of Luca. If anybody saw that.
I'm gonna be honest, I started Luca and shut it off.
Oh, I think Luca gets a little bit overlooked. I think it's better than what people generally think it is.
Overlooked
a little bit. Yeah. No. It's got some good music and the story is pretty awesome when it gets to the end. But that'll think of that when you're watching Screecher's Reach. If you have seen it, those are some standouts to me. I mean, I would love to talk about all of them and go through details here this way and that way. But John, I want to get to you. What are your overall takeaways from Visions Volume 2?
So I watched most of it. The two that had lasting impressions on me were Screecher's Reach and Ao's Song, for different reasons, totally polar opposite reasons actually. So like Screecher's Reach left me feeling like that sort of dreadful feeling of you see something happening in slow motion, you can't stop it from happening, and you know that there's no coming back from it. And that sort of like and I'm not going to get too spoilery with it, but the end of that episode like messed me up, and it made me think about it. Really
That's
did.
what I said.
That's what makes it so good. It's like,
no, but
it's
that.
yeah.
But I'm getting to it. Let me explain.
Yeah.
I liked it because of that, because it had an impact on me. Where this type of usually this type of animation, I'm not really a big follower of it. I'm not a big anime fan, but it impacted me in the sense that I'm like, well, that could be leading to a good thing, but it also feels like it's not, because whenever someone like looks back, there's always that sort of like that hesitation, and it made me like think about the end of Mando season 2 and that sort of stuff, but also just life, like it made me think of like a movie like Interstellar or something, where it's like, when's the last time you're going to say goodbye to somebody? You don't know when it is. And it's just like that. So that was a heavy episode, and it like still like sticks with me. I don't know that I love it, but it did something to me. And then
I blocked it out as soon as it happened. I was like, I'm never thinking about this again.
Yeah. I mean, that's understandable too, and I'm sure people, when they watch it, they'll get that. And just to be clear, we're not getting too spoilery here, so don't get too worried. If you need to check out for a few minutes, that's cool. But and then the other one that I really liked, the last one, Ao's song, it literally felt warm to me, from everything from the sunshine to the hot soup. It just felt inviting, that relationship between the father and daughter. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching my daughter today, Daisy, and she's with me, and I'm seeing this dad and this daughter have this relationship, and he's protective of her, like, you're not going to go down with those mines and stuff, and you're not going to sing and blah blah blah. But the bottom line about that episode was, I loved, like Lacey, you were saying about, it felt like real texture, like it felt like it had texture to it. I like that element. It felt 3D. I thought how it was directed was beautiful. The color palette was amazing, and just the story overall, I thought was a very uplifting and positive and great story. So Screech's Reach impacted me in like this sort of like emotional, deep, like sort of dark way. And then Ao's song like balanced that out for me. So you talk about balance in Star Wars, like those two episodes, like if you put them together, it's like a perfect even keel. And I like them both for different reasons. So those are my two.
I was going to ask you too, because I know, Lacey, you pointed this one out as well. Because I don't want to give away what happens in the story, so let's not talk about it. Let's just talk about just in general. But the Spy Dancer is one I felt like had a pretty. All of these had such good, like, you watch them and you go, yeah, that's Star Wars. I get what they pulled out of a Star Wars story and applied it to this.
Mm-hmm.
But that one did really. That was the first one where I really had that thought. I go, wow, that was a good Star Wars story, even though it doesn't feel Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that feels like something that would happen in Star Wars and would be like the arc of the 3-movie trilogy or something.
Right. Yeah, it was. That one was definitely one that caught me off guard, because I started off with it being kind of like, okay, this is okay. It's not my favorite, but it's fine. And then I think the twist for me, the part that it kind of shifted, I was like, oh, okay, this is super interesting. Where is this going now?
Mm-hmm. As the story kind of develops, yeah.
Yeah, and it felt like one of those stories from Volume 1 that I was intrigued enough to want to see more. Because not all these stories do you need to continue it. I felt like In the Stars was one of those stories that was like a perfect beginning, middle, end, and it was just good as is. Whereas Spy Dancer, I think it kind of left it so open-ended that I was like, okay, what's next? Same with Sith. I felt Sith was like, okay, where is she going type thing. But yeah, Spy Dancer was really cool, and it made me want to go to the club or bar that they're at. Like, it really was like one of those things that you're like, oh, I want to go there.
The opera?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the dance place. I don't know.
That's a good follow-up question for you guys. If you had to pick one of these to be a continued story or series or book, so maybe similar to what they did with Ronin, they actually picked up the story and they said, let's keep going with this. What's the one you would pick out of that?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I mean, they all have their cool storylines, but go ahead, John.
Well, either one of the two that were my favorite, because they do leave you sort of wondering what's going to happen next. One is sort of like you're going to start this, coming of age, finding yourself adventure, and the other one's sort of like, I'm not sure what's about to happen to this person. So either Screecher's Reach or Ao's Song, I think would be cool. And just thinking of like where else they could go from an environmental perspective and location perspective on Ao's Song. I mean, that visually was such a cool looking episode. So maybe for that alone, I would lean towards that one. And also just because of the despair of the other one.
Yeah, Ao's Song is definitely one that I want to see, like, where does it progress to? Like, they could go years later where she returns to see her dad or something, which would be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm falling back to Spy Dancer just because it leaves at such a cliffhanger moment.
I think I'm there too, honestly.
That I'm like, where is this going? And it was like so perfectly ends that you're like there's no other way to think, okay, what's next? Like, you think the next episode is going to pick up where
a lot of these have really good endings, even in the case of like they're bad endings. like it's good because it's bad, and that you want to leave it at that.
Yeah, like I'm Your Mother.
That is the one that I really does feel like.
Yeah.
I'm Your Mother could just be more stories.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm Your Mother to me also feels a little bit like Young Jedi Adventures in the sense of like, you just get one story in this world and the next one just picks up
with someone else.
Everything's reset and the next story is just another story with these characters, and that's all good and fine. So that one is probably I would say that one's probably the most wholesome, family oriented episode.
That and Ao's
that one's close to. I think probably more so the I'm Your Mother, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at it and you see Chicken Run, you see Wallace and Gromit.
Fair, yeah. I also wanted to just point out too that Sith reminded me of the Animatrix.
What is that?
They basically did this exact concept when the Matrix came out. They had all these different studios and people like handle animated of what they understood the Matrix to be. Yeah, they did like 8 episodes of it, and for some reason when I was watching it, I was like, I don't even know. I can't put my finger on like what even episode it was reminding of, but I just like was watching it. I was like, I think it might even be the art style. It looked like they have perfected it and they've done well, but it still had this vibe of kind of like a choppy early 2000s CG. Like that wasn't what it was, but I think the way that they were like going frame rate or something. Yeah. It had this early 2000s kind of animated vibe to it. And even though it was like drawn, it still kind of felt like it was those early workings of CG or something. So I don't know. It definitely had like that vibe, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest parts is in Sith in particular is when she decides to fight back and the color kind of comes behind her and then changes the whole scenery. Oh, it's just so cool. I think they all have moments like that you're like, oh man, this is just awesome. So I guess my question to you guys is, did you like season or volume 1 or volume 2 better?
I mean, not a lot from volume 1 stuck with me. I don't think I'll be able to say that about this one. So I'm just going to say 2 for that reason. But I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm not, an expert on this type of animation. I know a lot of people said that they liked the first one better because of the type of animation, but I just go by things that either stick with me or things that I like.
That is sort of the thing to me is like, I think that overall I might have enjoyed all of season 1 better because of the animation styles. But this is sort of the problem with Visions is I feel like it's here and it will be gone next week. And it doesn't get revisited. It doesn't get celebrated as much as other Star Wars content. It just seems like it's there and then it's gone really quickly. And occasionally I'll go back and watch an episode of Vision season 1, just like whatever. And it's like, this is so good. And I think that's still going to be the case for Vision season 2. I think they will both have equal amount of me being able to revisit and really love. But if you have to look at the two of them together, I'm going like, well, that one had more of the style that I liked the best. but I don't think that speaks for the stories necessarily, because the stories hold up in volume 2
Yeah.
very much.
My quick answer is I don't know if it's because it's recency bias. I'm gonna go volume 2. I really liked these. Like John was saying, I feel like these stories stuck with me more than the first season or the first volume. So hopefully we'll get another volume, please. Hopefully.
Yes, which I don't know if we're breaking news or whatever, but Jeff Schneider said today that volume 3 is already in the works.
I hope so. I hope he's right. He's been right so
He
far.
said
I
that
do
on
have
the
a
podcast.
super
That guy's
chat.
got somebody with loose lips over there in Lucasfilm. I'll tell you that.
I think so. I think so.
So we do have a super chat that has to do with this. So I'm going to say thank you to Matt Lawless for the super chat. He says, number
Thank you,
2,
Matt.
Screecher's Reach wasn't my favorite, but kept me thinking long after.
Yeah.
Very dark. Devil
Yeah.
you know versus devil you don't. That's completely what we've been saying. Although I'm the one of the 3 that's like, nah, I'm out.
It felt like watching a horror movie and you're like, well, I don't like horror movies, but like you watch it and it's like you think it's in your mind and you're like, you think about it all the time.
Ready
You're
or
like,
not.
that movie stuck with me. And
Ready or not.
I
hate
didn't
horror movies,
necessarily
and that
say it was a
movie stuck
good
with me.
movie. Yeah, but it
Dude,
stuck with me. Yeah.
The first half, it's not a good movie, but the first half of AI messed me up, man. And it's stuck. It to this day, I cannot watch that scene. If you watch that movie, the scene you know I'm talking about, especially after having kids. Oh,
I
God
don't know
almighty.
what you're talking about, but I will not be watching it.
Don't watch that movie.
My parents
Lacey,
rented
do
that
not
movie
watch that
when it came out, and like we're like, oh, it's a little robot. Like the trailer was very different. Like it was like robot boy, woo. And all I remember is at the I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. The ending is
That
like
came out
very
23
I haven't
years
seen
ago.
it, but yeah.
The ending is just very kind of like ominous, like very, very.
It's depressing. It's the darkest Pinocchio story you'll ever see.
I want to see it.
That's
now.
the only thing I remember from this whole thing is the ending. And I remember being like sitting there being like, I don't like this. Like very little.
If there are people in the chat
When did that
who've
come
seen
out?
AI, they know what scene I'm talking about. And I just can't. It's like when people talk about the horse scene in Neverending Story. It's like that for me. It's rough.
Well, Matt, thank you for your super chat.
Yes.
But now we're going to go into something a little bit more positive. A little bit more happy.
Yes. Let's talk about Young Jedi Adventures. Now, as John alluded to earlier, we didn't get screeners, so we are watching this as soon as we can today. Any opportunity that we had today to watch some of these episodes. And we already had a little bit of a vibe because a lot of the shorts had already been released. So I had watched some of those as they were coming out. So we're kind of familiar with the characters. We went to Celebration and they obviously were pushing them there. So we learned some of the characters. Hasbro has their toys and stuff, which are very cool.
The toys look so good. It has like a little PlayStation, like playhouse.
It looks a lot of
with
fun.
A slide. Oh my gosh. Guess what's going to be on Daisy's Christmas list?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's going to be on Bennett's because when we were in Florida, every single time the commercial came on, because we had to put on what was on TV, like the Disney Channel or whatever. So they were pushing Young Jedi Adventures like all week. And every time the commercial came up, he's like, Dad. And he's like, hey, it's the show you like. It's the show we watch. But I mean, even today, I tried to get him to watch it. And he's like, kind of
let's go watch
it.
Mario.
He's like not as interested as I would hope he would be in it. I don't know if it's too young for him or if he's just not interested in it. He's obviously, I don't think he'd be too old for him. That doesn't make sense. But did your guys' kids have different experience today?
John, you go first.
So I think Lacey and I had a similar chat, and not to peel the curtain back, but we were sort of talking like we're not gonna be able to watch all these things today. How are we gonna talk about this tonight? So I think we all tried to watch a decent amount to get a good feel for the series. Yeah, I got through. Well, they come in pairs, so I think I went through 4 stories, but 2 episodes. And
there are.
Well, it's like I
didn't get through 3.
It's like this story and then this story, sort of in the one episode.
Did you watch the one with the boat? Was that the last one you watched, Lacey? So you watched 1.5.
Yeah.
Oh, I've watched 1.5.
This takes me back to like Rugrats and Doug,
Yes.
where you have like a block,
Dun,
but then it was like
dun.
half episodes.
Yeah. Like Beavis and Butthead.
Sure.
Did they do that? Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, John, what'd you think?
So I was watching my daughter today, and either Lacey called me on the phone or my dad. Someone called me on the phone. I had it on. I paused it, and she waited for me to finish the phone call. And then as soon as I finished the phone call, I'm back on my laptop working on the show notes for the podcast. And she's like, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." She points at the TV. It's got the Roku screensaver on it, and she's like, And I'm like, "Oh, you want me to put that back on?" She's like, "Yeah." So I unpaused it and she starts watching it. So she's like the visuals of it and stuff, sort of like how she is with Pixar movies. If there's a certain type of visual style that's very appealing, bright colors, 3D looking, she's like, "Oh yeah." So I like that she liked that. And it sounds like Lacey and I had similar experiences today. But
that was me on the phone too, because I remember she was yelling at you while I was on the phone with you. And
Oh,
you're like,
there
okay,
you go.
one
Yeah.
second, 1 second, 1 second.
Yeah, she was pointing at the TV like, "Come on." So anyone who has kids knows as soon as you get on the phone, that's when they want to talk to you. But I liked it because it's simple. It's a nice little gateway for kids to get into Star Wars. It tells moral stories, and I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything like that. The only thing that I think they use Yoda too much in this stuff. I don't know that Yoda is necessary here. I didn't really love the voice of who did Yoda. I didn't like how Yoda looked. That's my only nitpick. I just think use Yoda less, because you're despecializing him. And George Lucas's whole thing about Yoda was that we don't know much about him and he's special. And I think saving Yoda for smaller pockets of things is better. They seem to use him way too much in a lot of these things. That's my only thing. Everything else I really enjoyed. I think it looks great. It sounds great. The music's awesome. They use a lot of themes in it. I think kids are going to absolutely love it. For the most part, and it's going to allow them to sort of like see themselves as little kid Jedi. So I think it's great. I think it's going to be a really awesome show for kids to get into, and even adults who like Star Wars to pop it on, whether you have kids or not. Just for like, let me just watch something that's Star Wars, because it is fun. It's innocent. It makes you feel good and wholesome, and it teaches those lessons that George Lucas wanted to teach, which is being selfless, making the right choices, learning from your mistakes. So I think even, George Lucas, who doesn't speak much to Star Wars today, I'd like to think that maybe he sees something like that and he's like, I'm glad they're doing that. And I have no idea whether he thinks that or not. I'm just hoping maybe, but I think this is a good series and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So good for them.
Yeah.
Lacey? I turned it on in the afternoon with my daughter, and she immediately started pointing at the screen and making noises and getting excited about Nubs as soon as he came on screen. Like in the very first episode where they're kind of fighting in their little area. She also called Yoda Grogu. She pointed at the screen and said Grogu, even though it's not Grogu. So congratulations, Jon Favreau. It has happened. So she knows Grogu before Yoda, which is so funny because I'm now experiencing Star Wars through her eyes, where she doesn't know Yoda. She knows Grogu.
Wow.
So she got excited about that. And then she also liked RJ-83, the little droid. So kind of like the cutesy stuff. She's on the younger end, obviously, of kids that know what's going on. She's very much into like Cocomelon and stuff like that. So she obviously had no idea what was going on, but she liked every time certain characters were on screen. And I think similar to what John was saying is like, bright colors, fun voices. She liked the lightsaber fighting. But she's about, I would say, like 6 to 8 months younger than John's daughter. So she's a little bit younger. But yeah, she definitely enjoyed it. And I took a picture, which James has, of her watching it, which is just like one of those proud mom moments. She loved Nubs. She was all about Nubs. So for our audio listeners, if you want to check out our YouTube channel, we have it on the screen. But I can also maybe I'll post on social. We'll see. But yeah, she loved Nubs, all about it.
Very cool.
D. Bradley Baker does a great job having this like little cutesy voice.
That guy is employed.
Yeah, he's got jobs. He's got jobs for sure.
Yeah. But that's kind of it. I
Um,
mean, it was cute. It was fun. I think it's going to be good for little kids, especially ones that are a little too young for maybe like Rebels or Clone Wars or stuff like
yeah,
that.
there's not a whole lot to add. I think it's kind of an interesting style. It's like this halfway between 3D and 2D kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's not quite 3D animated, but it is actually. I think they just like stylize the characters a little bit so they look a little bit more like
It
2D
feels
classic
like
2D or
PJ
something.
Mask or like
It does.
Spidey and his friends type of thing.
Yeah. And which kind of gives me to the a bigger thing because we were talking about visions earlier. It's like when I'm thinking about Star Wars and how they can tell all these different animation styles. I don't know if I know it's a money thing actually because it's like the cheapest way to do it the way that they're doing it, but it's kind of like Clone Wars is different from Rebels. Rebels is different from Bad
Yeah.
Batch. It's like
Yeah.
they are different. I get it,
Resistance.
but
Mhm.
like, come on, there's like I would love to see. I mean, I would love to see a 2D anime style, show. Like if they want to do it, even if it was that American anime style, like in the Pit, for instance, or the Pit, I think is what it's called. Um, then I'm okay with that. Or like Avatar would be like the other example. I wish that we could see more animated styles that isn't just playing within like 3D animation and just like kind of toying around that concept with different little like uh textures and things, like let's really branch out and do some really cool crazy stuff like obviously we're seeing with Visions. That's really cool.
I do want to talk
Yeah.
about John Roca in the comments. Thanks for watching, John.
Hey,
John
buddy.
Gotta
Roca
come
in
on.
the comments.
You got to come
Got an
on
outlaw
soon.
up in here.
Yeah, he brought up, were you guys surprised by their 26 minutes each? Were you surprised by that? I thought they'd be like 10 to 14. John, I was very surprised because at the beginning of this conversation, I thought I had watched 3 episodes. It ends up I've only watched 1.5.
So
Which
yeah, they split up the stories so that like the first episode's the young Jedi and Yoda's mission, so they are around 12 to 13. But John, I'm the same way. When I saw, because I was like, did this go to the next episode? And I didn't notice it, and I hit pause. And on Disney Plus, you need to also hit the arrow or something to find out where you're
Yeah.
at. And it was like 23 minutes to 26. I'm like, holy cow, there's like an episode of Entourage. So I did think that was long, but then when I realized that they split it up, I was like, all right,
so I don't know this based on my experience. I'm guessing, but my thought is, if first of all, it has no business being that long, especially when they're
There's
splitting it
no
up.
business.
It doesn't. I mean, obviously, it doesn't because they didn't do it. They're not 23-minute episodes or whatever. So I think what they've done here is they had to follow a blocking system for television because I think these are probably airing on the Disney Channel, considering the commercials that I kept seeing. So I think that they have like a slot at like,
Or Disney Junior or something.
exactly. Yeah. They have a slot from like 5 to 5:30 or something where they're going to be airing these episodes, but they couldn't do it if they were like 10 or 15-minute episodes. I mean, you could show 2 still, but like I think when they were putting the format together, they said they need to be this long and just
they
carry
are
through.
they are on Disney Junior.
That's what I'm saying is I think it had something to do with the broadcast aspect of it that they had to fit in within a
which we've all moved
certain
past.
time limit.
So we're all like, TV, what's that?
It is weird to me. Like I remember when Rebels was first kicking off, it was on Disney XD, and I was like, I'm buying it on iTunes. Like, just give me the episode when it comes out. And it's like, it'll come out the next day because it's got to air on Disney XD. I'm like, this isn't Game of Thrones. Like, come on, man, just give me the episode now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my guess on how that all handled. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the Hasbro stuff that was announced really quick? Just throw out a couple of the stuff. Anything striking to anybody in particular? I can pull it up here. We'll start maybe with the helmet. We got the helmet there.
Repaint.
Yeah, I got to give credit to Sabine Wren for finding Boba Fett's helmet and painting it for us. That's very nice of her to do that. I know she's busy getting ready for Ahsoka, but she brought out the spray paint cans. And no, I'm kidding, but it does look like a repaint. I like the Luke figure, of course.
The one with Grogu.
More Luke. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I'm not super familiar with was it the Darth Malgus figure? That looks kind of wild. The Old Republic character.
Mhm.
I don't
Gaming
think I
Grace.
have that one.
Yeah,
Cool,
but Luke and Grogu, I think, is a standout because it just brings back, the feelings of the old action figures that I had, the Power of the Force figures, where Luke or Yoda came with a backpack, and then he went with Dagobah Luke, and you would strap him onto that figure. So this is like sort of like that for this generation. It's cool. They all look great. Everything looks great. But I think
that's the
one.
Darth Malgus.
Yeah.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
I wrote Vader kick. I think I
Not
just
Vader.
looked at it for a split second. I was like, that's kind of a cool action pose for Vader. But no, that's
well,
the
that's
Darth
how
Malgus.
that's the original cut of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
that they,
he said, "Tell your sister I was right," and then he kicks him into a
no,
pit, like
he
Sparta.
super kicks Palpatine like Shawn Michaels over the top
Oh,
rope
there you go.
down to the shaft. Yeah,
And he like when Han throws that thing at the guy and he like falls over the railing, like
exactly.
the Emperor falls over the railing, does the Wilhelm and all that.
Yeah. And Vader tunes up the band. He's stomping on the mat. Like Palpatine should have seen it coming, but he cracks him in the jaw with the super kick, and away he goes.
So I'm going to be honest right now. A lot of these announcements are either re-releases or kind of like, I would say, late releases. And even then, some of them aren't even coming out until spring 2024. Like you have Mando with the Darksaber, which you're like, okay, another Mando. He's not coming out till spring 2024.
But
Like, haven't you already made a bunch of Mandos?
I was gonna say this Chewbacca on screen, Lacey. Like, is this the first Black Series Chewbacca? Like, what about this Chewbacca is unique?
I think they're just reworking the figure. He probably is more articulated and stuff. Comes with
which is
more
fine.
better
It was just an honest question.
My critique with the Hasbro team, as always, and I said this to him at Celebration, and James was there when I said it, is I'm the one that's always bothering you about Ben Solo, and they all laughed because I am. I want Solo creatures that they never did. I want Ben Solo, which to me is still bananas that they have not done a Ben Solo figure, seeing as they already have the mold for Kylo Ren, multiple Kylo Rens. It's just crazy to me. And we still keep getting clones and clones and clones and Mandos and Mandos and Mandos because I know they're easy to make. I just wish they would do, those are cool. I have to admit, the Wicket and Kinesa are good.
What if Adam Driver keeps showing up to the Hasbro manufacturing factory and ruining all the molds every time they try to make it?
He just slashes them with his lightsaber like a TFA.
He does his like yell and he's like, shut it down.
I don't know. I just kind of wish they were doing more. It's a selfish request. I wish they were doing kind of more sequel trilogy stuff. I feel like they've moved on very quickly from that. I'm still very thankful, which I told them at Celebration, that they did raise lightsaber. It was perfect, and I'm glad that they got it. They perfected it before they released it. But I feel like we keep falling back on this Mando stuff, Mando action figures, which I understand they sell, but nothing that's come out lately has been like, oh my God. Except I think the Chopper. I thought the Chopper was very cool. The talking chatterback Chopper.
That was cool. Yeah.
That was cool. The Jabba was very cool for Return of the Jedi, the whole Jabba playset. But yeah, I care a lot. Those are my critiques. I just care. I buy their stuff all the time, so it's not like I'm like I want these things. I don't buy anything because I do. I can show you my bins and bins and bins that I bought.
Yeah, they make.
I'm the opposite.
Great, but
what?
I was gonna say the products are great in terms of like how they make them, and they're getting better and better. It's just it seems like we're getting a lot of the same, like Lacey said, and everyone talks about the repaint helmet stuff. I didn't come up with that. It's just it seems I'm not saying the word like lazy or anything, but it does seem like people are underwhelmed. Like Lacey said, it's like that's the.
And I think the timing is always tricky too because they're under the pressure of not getting information or production from Lucasfilm until a certain point.
Sure.
And the problem with that is that then they have a time period where they have to go into production and then they have to release it, which is ending up being a year later, 15 months later, stuff like that. So they're kind of in a tough spot, but I just hope eventually we get back to kind of what they did for movies where they had these big events in stores where you could go get the stuff in hand because it's very much turned into an online kind of
Oh,
situation. That's not fun. As
I
a collector, that's not fun.
Yeah.
The fun for me as being a collector is going to not grocery stores, but I mean it could be.
Grocery stores.
But any store or like a flea market or a Comic-Con where you get to go on the hunt. That's part of the
yeah,
fun. And I feel like
yeah.
at this point we're not having that because it's all online.
I'm sort of the opposite in the sense of like I agree with when I see a lot of these, you know, I'll click in here. Well, that's a little different, I guess. But it's like this was announced today, Clone Trooper, and I'm like, Clone Trooper, cool. You know, that neat. I like Clone Troopers.
And people
But
like the
if I
troopers
was
for
at the
world
store, I
building.
would just like look at this and be like, oh, that's a Clone Trooper, and I wouldn't be super excited about it. There are things that I would like to see them make, but unfortunately, I don't buy that stuff. So I would be like, yeah, they did it. That's awesome, man. And then like just sneak back into the bushes because like I don't want to pay money to buy it. But there are things that I would like to see them do, and they just haven't done. But I understand that even if they did make it, you know, that small group of people who want to see it probably wouldn't buy it as well. So they got to stick to what they know sells.
Yeah.
I guess.
Like
I don't know.
when IG-12 comes out next May the 4th, 2024, with Grogu and it's electronic and you can hit the buttons and you know it's coming. Is the buzz still going to be there? Or people are going to be like, oh yeah, that was cool, even though he doesn't even use that anymore? It's like, that's the thing. Like Star Wars is telling these stories, but they're changing things so quickly that by the time the figure comes out, that character's either dead or whatever's involved with it doesn't exist anymore. It's just like
Rise of
it's crazy.
Skywalker merch came out, I think, the following year after the movie came out. So it was like Babu Frick came out the following year. All this stuff came out the following year. And then Rey's lightsaber didn't come out until like, what, a year and a half, 2 years later. I do want to say one thing before we move on. So Semperfi Danny, thank you so much for the comment, said, could the lack of Ben Solo figures have to do with the contract copyright issues about producing something with the likeness of the actor? Sure, there are probably instances of that, but with this, Danny, I could tell you right now, I've been reorganizing my collection. I have four Kylo Ren's downstairs with his mask off, all of Adam Driver, all different ones, with scar, without scar. They already have the mold. The mold's been made. So my whole thing is just put him in a black sweater, put a hole in it. We're good to go.
Just have
Give him the
Mr.
lightsaber.
Stevie make you a custom Ben Solo.
I know. I feel like it's one of those things that like once you're in it, once you've been rooting for it, you like can't, you know, like make Solo 2 happen. I can't back down. I gotta keep going.
Let's have a make a custom Ben Solo for Lacey contest. And if you're listening, make a custom Ben Solo and then get it to Lacey, and then we'll review all the Ben Solos and we'll make the Ben Solos fight to the death.
I even have one that I bought off eBay because I thought it was so funny, and it's a Ben Swolo from The Last Jedi, and it's an
God almighty.
3.75 figure that they had made of Kylo Ren that someone put like the big chest on from like the power. But yeah, no,
Man.
it's right there. It's right there. The
There
only
it
merch
is.
they've made is a Funko Pop. That's the only one that they've made of Ben Solo. But anyway, I won't keep talking about this. We can move on.
Yeah, I guess we'll go into our next section then. John,
Yep.
You want to introduce it?
I would love to introduce it. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Lacey Gilleran with Resistance.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, let's go.
Thanks, John. That was so delightful.
My pleasure.
To be fair, for some reason in my mind, I was like, well, we got to move on to the next section. It's Ask the Resistance. So I was trying to toss it to John. But this is usually Lacey's segment. What do we got, Lacey?
All right, guys, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So this is where John puts a crazy, wacky situation on Twitter, and you guys give your answers. We haven't done this in a while, so I'm pretty pumped about this. This is the first time, maybe second time we're doing this live, so this is exciting. So yeah, I don't know.
Like it, we'll do it more live. You know, if people are digging it live, we'll keep it up.
Sure. Now the way this works is I haven't seen the question. I don't know what you guys said, so we'll see how this goes. All right. So the situation is, let's assume Dave Filoni made a Twitter burner account so he can anonymously participate in online fandom. Could you imagine? Who admitted that they had a burner account? Kelly Moutran. Kelly Moutran said. What do you think the handle would be?
Easily.
I would if I was like, oh yeah. Okay. First up is our buddies at Children of the Watch at COT Watch.
Wait. I feel like just can you tell what the punchline is again? Because I feel like you guys were talking over each other a little bit.
What
Just
would the
so-
handle be if Dave Filoni had a burner account?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So first up is Children of the Watch at COT Watch. What up, guys? They're the best. They said at Wolfpack Plo. He is obsessed with Plo Koon. It's like to the point that it's like very comical. But I feel like for a while, us as fans, we didn't pick up on how obsessed he is until now. It's like he's like, yeah, I wrote in Plo Koon. Yeah, it was Plo Koon. Yeah.
And to be just for everyone out there, there were almost 100 responses to this. So people either like this topic or they've been waiting for resistance transmissions. But there were a lot of Plo Koon answers. I had to go with one of the first ones I saw, and I went with our buddies Alex and Mac.
It's like when you do something George Lucas and everybody puts faster and more intense. You're like, I can only say that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Next up is Molly Damon at Molly Damon. Hey, Molly. She said
Molly.
at Wolfman69. All right, Molly. All right. Next is Andrew Schmidt at Andrew_Schmidt, who said, Zero is my hero. Next is Matt Chitty at Matt Chitty 1882. What up, Matt? He said at its_trapper. That's
Well
clever.
done.
It's a trapper.
Wolf.
I like that.
Next
It's a trap.
is Kevin Smets at Kev
Smets.
Smets KEVSMETS. What up, Kevin? He said at what a bunch of Filoni.
What a bunch of Filoni.
That's actually really clever, and I'm not going to be surprised if this ends up being a podcast at some point.
I think
Filoni.
I think we made some similar joke a long time around about like Filoni.
We used to call him
something
Dave
like that.
Baloney when he would say things we didn't think were true. Yeah.
I'm going to need Brian Ward to make a Photoshop of an Oscar Mayer bologna package that says, what a bunch of Filoni.
Check
Brian,
Twitter
if you're
tomorrow. He's
listening.
quick.
Oh
He
yeah.
is quick. Next is Andrew Staley at Deuce_Staley. What up, Andrew? He said, that's a good question. It's either that, Andrew, or that's an interesting question.
That's
Yeah.
an interesting question.
Next is Chichumi at Chichumi. CheeChoomi. I like that.
Way to get your handle, Chichumi.
Yeah, way to get your handle. At Cloney_Filoni.
Filoni.
He loves clones, that guy.
Next is Mark Newbold at Prefect_Timing. Hey, Mark, how's it going? He said at Fave_Deloney. He says it's got to happen if it hasn't already. That's actually pretty
Thanks,
funny.
Mark.
And then last but not least is Darth Del Rio at Darth Rio, who said at not the real Dave Filoni.
That's how you get people off the scent. You say
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
You sniff them off the case. That's
This
right
was
off the
good.
case.
I think my favorite though is still what a bunch of Filoni.
Yeah, that one had because I also like that one got a lot of likes too. I had
What
to
a
get Smets in the
bunch
mix
of
there.
Filoni.
Good job,
I would
Kevin.
not be surprised if in some interview he's going to say that at some point. This is somehow going to get to him, and in one of these interviews, someone's going to ask him a question. He's going to go, "That's a bunch of Filoni."
Right.
Anyway, thank
Good
you guys
job,
so much.
everybody.
If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on Twitter, but also all our other social channels at TRB Podcasts, and just look out for the Resistance transmissions because it's a good time to be a part of it. Back to you, John.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I hope everyone in the live chat enjoyed going on the ride with us on those Resistance transmissions. Don't ever hesitate to pop yours in the chat too. We can always put them up on screen. But we hope you enjoyed it. If you do like us doing that live, we will continue to. But thanks everybody for listening and watching, being a part of TRB. If you joined us live on Star Wars Day, that's an honor for us because there's so much you can do. In our Discord on Patreon, people were talking about they were at trivia events and they were we were
Galaxy's
helping each other
Edge.
out. People were going to the movies. People were going to watching movies at home, doing cosplay, all sorts of things. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Make sure you do subscribe to the show on your preferred platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, wherever. And if it has a rating system, please rate us. We're seeing a lot of growth on both Apple and Spotify. So however you're finding us, spread the word, tell your friends. and that's the way we grow. We it's just the three of us here doing this thing, so we appreciate any and all help. And speaking of which, our patrons who allow us to do shows like this. If you go back to when we first started doing this podcast, we didn't have video. When we started doing video, it looked heinous. The reason why we're able to keep, the reason why we did you say I looked pretty bad or we looked?
I said
bad?
it looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
I mean, more me than anything else, but yeah, it looked pretty bad.
You were in a closet with like a light bulb. It looked like you were being interrogated.
For the video.
Not for the video.
Oh,
but
yeah,
for the
yeah.
video, it was rough. It was a rough time.
Yeah.
We just turned on cameras. That's really all it was.
Yeah. But our support on Patreon allows us to not only continue doing what we're doing, you know, we have families, we have jobs and stuff, but also allows us to grow and improve the quality of what we're doing. So thank you to anyone who has supported us at patreon.com/resistance broadcast, past, present, future. If you're able to support us, tiers start at $5 per month. But a special thank you to our generals and spice runners. Our Patreon generals: Carmelo, John RISI, JETTA ROSEWATER, Frank Grande, Darth HURICANE, Nick KRATZ, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt CHITTY, DANI, Mike RUMORE, Matt HEATH, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Aaron Ellington, Micah Harrison, Colin Cormier, Haz Aslam, Ryan WAARA, and Jolton Jedi DiMaggio. And our Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall GELNER, David HORNAK, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and Michael Fry. Thank you, everybody, for all of your support.
Good.
You could find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. I should have a short coming out soon, maybe tomorrow, on our YouTube channel, talking about my experience watching Return of the Jedi in the theaters, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, on any audio podcast app. We just did an episode on Braveheart. James, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks, and also then on the short that I did today, if anybody wants to go check it out. But we pretty much talked about what I've said anyway, so it's like if you want an extra minute with me, you can go check it out. Lacey, what about you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gilleran. Also doing the Visions review that I did yesterday, where I kind of run through the episodes, talk about my favorite things and why I love Visions so much. And then I also have a special unboxing coming from Hasbro. So hopefully I wasn't too harsh earlier.
No. People love the respectful honesty. We will be back Monday, where we're getting back to our regular rotation. So we're doing news chat on Thursdays live, and then Monday we're having our discussion show. So we're going to have a pretty interesting speculative discussion about Rey's future in that next movie. So we hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. We hope the rest of your May the 4th is great. Do Revenge of the 5th, do Revenge of the 6th. Keep it going. We're Star Wars fans. We're crazy. To us, it's just a Thursday, right? So we'll see you next time with another episode right here on the Resistance broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.